Hey, and welcome everyone for today, and thanks for joining us and tuning in. We'll change slide. Welcome to our project Level Up session today. These sessions are an opportunities for you to level up and for you to know more, and a sort of a training session to understand the context of our project. It is an important part to share and to spread knowledge, both within the project and out of the public arena. So we, as in Monica Ek,
yes, hello,
hi, and myself, Anna Wemblad, we are representing project management here, and we continuously will hold these project level up sessions and inspiring sessions with different themes. You are welcome to contribute with your thoughts and ideas of any further sessions that we will have. Upcoming sessions are May 13, May 27, June 10, and June 24. And these sessions will be recorded and published externally, and you are welcome to publish any questions in the Zoom chat at any time, and we'll take them after this presentation. Now, I also want to highlight of our project objectives that we have. And we have 4 important ones to remember. And this is where we want to reach and want to be in the end of our project in March 2027. So if I just say the 4 ones is inclusive digital twin city design, AI enhanced technical development and service integration, strategic communication for project replication and outreach, and development of a sustainable and scalable business model. Now, I'm sure you all know of this, and I just wanted to remind you of them. And speaking of that, we also have, of course, a very important part of our project, and a very crucial part is the interoperability. And today we have invited here Claus Popp Larsen from RISE, who is a project partner, and interoperability is a prerequisite of a scalable solution and a very important part of the EU project and the digital transformation. So today, presenter Claus, I leave the word to you then, and you go for it, and I will stop sharing.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I will start sharing now. Yes, do you see my screen now?
yes,
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
And okay, so and we talked about, so if you have questions, put them in the chat and we will take them afterwards. And I'll try to limit myself to half an hour here, talking about unlocking interoperability. And I will explain what is interoperability and what is it in terms of something that's data related, you could say. And I will get into what's coming from EU, because we need to follow EU strategy and direction here as well. And then we'll end up in how to actually work with interoperability, which is in some senses very easy and in other senses very hard, but we'll come to that. Right, so let's get started here. Let me see. Yes. Okay, yeah, we need to talk about interoperability. It's a hard word. It's formed by the Latin words inter, which is between, operari, which is work, and abilitas, which is ability. So it forms interoperability. And there are many different definitions of interoperability, but the Cambridge Dictionary says the ability to work together with other systems or pieces of equipment. And I think it's it's pretty good. It's not covering everything, but it's a good definition that different pieces of systems can work together and understand each other. Now we have this European interoperability framework, which is kind of a background for interoperability within the EU, and that includes EU projects. And it's called AIF. And within AIF, there are different kinds of interoperability. There's legal interoperability, organizational, semantic, and technical. And I will come into all these. And then we have a governance interoperability as well. This AIF, it's a pretty good document, but it's almost impossible to use if you are a municipality, for example. It's on a too high level. And this year, the AIF will be updated, so there will come a new AIF, hopefully within this year. I don't know. They have started the work of updating it. But let's stick to these definitions here for a while. The minimum interoperability mechanisms, it's something that's used within the smart community in EU, which is centered around Overscan living in EU. And this is and because we are working within this project in this community, we need to relate to these MIMs as well. And it's a description of minimal but sufficient set of capabilities that a CISA community needs to achieve a certain objective to a good enough extent. So it's not full, it's not plug and play, it's the least that you need in order to get something that's good enough. So it's important to understand that we don't talk about plug and play interoperability today because it's not mature enough. We talk about the least we need to consider and something that's good enough, right? So what is interoperability? And I will give some practical examples that you all know of. And one is this USB-C contact. It has been common standard for devices sold in EU from autumn last year. So since half a year ago, all devices sold in the EU, they should have this standard. And this is something that EU decided because the market couldn't agree on it itself. And especially Apple, they tried to fight it. But now it's the same concept. And it's really something that's good for the end user, and it's good for the environments that you don't have all these thousands of different chargers and different contacts. So it's a good thing. It's something that an example of where EU went into character, you could say, and decided this is how we do in EU. Another example of interoperability is for the trains. So if I want to go by night train from Stockholm to somewhere down in Europe, we need to agree on a few things. And the basic things we need to agree on is the same track gauge. And it's 1435 millimeters, which is so in the most of EU, in the Baltic countries and in Finland, and maybe some other countries that have other standards. They have a Russian standard. But if we want to travel, if we want to cross the borders by train, we need to agree on something. We also need to agree on the power supply. It should be an overhead line, not a third track or anything. It should be an overhead line, and it should be 5 to 6 meters above the tracks. And these two actually standardized. These are examples of international standards. Then there's so much more in a train that you need to consider also around interoperability. But these are the least things that you need to agree upon. So think about that when you think about these minimum interoperability mechanisms as well. So something that just needs to be in place for things to work. So when it comes to data, and this is related to these MIMs as well. What do we want here? Well, we want all the key components to be modular and exchangeable. And the key components here, if you see to the right, it's data sharing, and it's all the services and applications. So that means that we, as a minimum, we need to make a separation between data and data sharing and services and applications. If we agree on that, then we can start designing our systems according to that and procure our systems according to that. And at some stages, when you want to exchange data with others, you need to agree on, for example, the data models. That is how you describe data, the format of data, so that you know exactly 5 degrees Celsius, how it should be expressed. And the APIs are the rules for getting hold of data. So these should be clearly standardized. Maybe not in the first step, but in a second step, as soon as you start sharing data and connecting equipment. And we have some visions related to these, and one is that it should be simple to share data within a municipality and externally. And this is not really the case today, but this is something that we want to achieve. Another vision is that an application or service that's developed in one municipality should easily be moved to another municipality using the same framework. And also, this is still a little bit science fiction, but it's not unreasonable, and one day we'll come there. But it's good to think about. This is where we are heading. So again, what does this mean if we try to break it down? So as I said, we should separate data from sharing of data from use of data. The way it's done today typically is that you have silo solutions, like on figure A. You have parallel solutions where you don't share anything. You don't share data. You don't share technology. You don't share processes and so on. And these are from different suppliers, and you are quite locked in here. And in the municipalities, this is the situation today, combined with the one in B, where one big actor will handle everything. So one big supplier will lock you in. They themselves are very capable of handling data, but they don't do it externally. So these are two kinds of lock-in situations that are very common in most municipalities today. What you want to achieve is that data can be shared and everything is exchangeable. So you want to have the situation C instead. And this is not something that you can just do from one day to the other. So it's kind of a target, and you should work your way towards it. It's not easy to do that. And it's this is a way of showing you go from silo to collaboration. So instead of you have separate silos, you break down everything from a horizontal or from a vertical model to a horizontal model. And this is something that will change the business model for everyone involved in this. So there will be resistance to this from the big silo suppliers, for example, or the big monolithic suppliers. So it's radically different from today's situation, and this is one of the reasons why it's so hard to get there. But this is where we are going. This is where EU is going as well. So we better get used to it. But it kind of shows that it's not easy. It'll take many years for this to be effective, you could say. And if we just compared to what we do with digital twins, then if you have an IoT platform or some data sharing platform down to the right, you have input data. It's sensor data or dynamic data. It could come from sensors or it could come from different systems. It doesn't really matter. It's dynamic data. And on top of that, you have different IoT applications or services. If you look at a digital twin from an IoT platform perspective, then a digital twin is just one of many applications. But the digital twin, that could be a platform in itself with different applications on top of it. So it's depending on your viewpoint here. And the digital twin will depend on geodata to create the shape of the twin and other kinds of data as well. And it'll depend on the IoT data, live data to get life. So in that sense, IoT and digital twin are mutually interdependent. And all the red lines you see here will need some kind of interfaces, because you have a transfer of data and you have different systems that are interconnected. And there you need to have interfaces, and you need to work with standards here. So this is what creates interoperability here, you could say. And the two kinds of interoperability that we have really talked about here is, I will just quickly go back to this eighth picture here. And you see it here. It's technical interoperability. It's that different systems will work together, and semantic interoperability, that you can understand the data coming from one system to the other. And these are technical parts. They are, compared to the others, they're easy to solve, and we can do it. It's not always easy in a real life situation, but they are. It's relatively straightforward. So why don't we have interoperability today? Well, if interoperability were an iceberg, then it would look like this. So when we talk about interoperability, we think mostly about semantics and technology, these two kinds of interoperability. And as I said, these are the easiest to solve. But there's also organizational and legal interoperability. They are harder to solve. And I'll come back to these. So now I will dive into what's happening in EU, and I'll try to wrap everything up by the end. Let's see how it goes. EU has this big policy program called Digital Decade 2030, and this is like what directs everything coming out of EU regarding digitalization. And they are using this pyramid here. So it's about digital sovereignty. That's it's a keyword within EU. It could mean different things. It has two sides at least. And one side is that you should be self-dependent within different technologies, for example, so that we are not relying on American services or Chinese services and systems. So that's one of the things that we need to be self-dependent. And this has become increasingly more important now with all the geopolitical instability in the world, and especially from our friends on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. And this is one side. The other side is that EU should compete on a geopolitical level again against the US and China and other countries. But they should do it with the European values. So when it comes to data, you could say a little bit roughly maybe that in the US, it's the big companies controlling the data, and they have a market on data, on my personal data as well. And we don't want that in EU. In China, it's the government who owns the data and can do what they want. And this is also something that we don't want. Instead, in EU, we want to have a situation where it's the user of data that can control data. It's completely different from how it's done in the US and China, and it's much more complicated. So it's based on these European values that are people at the center, inclusion, freedom of choice, and so on. And it's backed up by rules, which are all these acts, all the legislation coming out of EU now. And I'll come back to a few of these. So just comment here on these values. So when EU talk about values, it's something that they can actually measure, and they can they can require. It's very specific. And one example is that last week, Apple and Meta, they just got fined by the EU. Apple got fined 500 million euros for login, like violating the freedom of choice in the iPhone. And Meta, like the parent company behind Facebook, they got fined 200 million euros for collecting and using personal data in the wrong way. So EU has muscles, and they want to find those that are not following the European rules. So that's pretty interesting that they are stepping up now. Within this digital decade, there's a strategy for data. And the vision is that EU wants to create a single market for data where data can flow freely within the across all countries and across different sectors. It'll take a few years before this becomes a reality, but it starts sector by sector now. And the data that should be available in high quality, and it should be structured and interoperable, and where European rules and values are fully respected. So this is a cornerstone within the European data strategy. And so what happens now is that EU gives us a direction, and they give us support in the shape of a structure, specific goals, financing, like financing this project, and all the legislation. So this is because the different member states, they cannot handle this by their own, and the market cannot handle it. So EU comes in and orchestrates everything with a firm hand, you could say. And then you can like it or not, but I think if we really want to come in a situation where we can compete against US and China, and if we want our own sovereignty, then we really need this. So this is my personal opinion. You don't have to agree. So then we come to data spaces, and they kind of form the heart of EU's data economy. They don't really exist yet. They're on their way in different projects. There will be other ways of sharing data, but the intention is that most public data should be shared through a data space in the future. And a data space, you can think about it as a data portal. It's a little bit like a data portal, or the same principles, where the data holder, the one who has data, can add data and show data, expose data in a data space, so that the data consumer can find it and use it. So data should be searchable within a domain. So there will be a catalog service as in most data portals. But there will be no data within a data space apart from metadata, which is the data describing what kind of data it is. So for example, the data that will be in a data space is that, so in Gothenburg we have temperature data from different parts of Gothenburg, but the data itself, the temperature itself, will not be here. But it's a broker function between the data holder and the data consumer, and it will work both for open data and for protected data. So in a data space, even sensible information should be allowed to flow, for example, personal data. And that means that there will be heavy security functions in it. So you need some kind of federated authentication. And this will be built into these data spaces. You also need contracts so that you, as a data consumer, for example, can be sure that data has sufficiently high quality and that data will be available tomorrow. You don't know that with the open data portals today. You don't have a guarantee for that. But if you want to build a service on data from a data space, you should really have guarantees that the quality is high enough and the delivery of data is stable. And they're born to be interoperable. So they're born to follow these MIMS, minimum interoperability requirements, as I showed before, because you see you have this separation here. It's built into the data space. You separate data from sharing of data from use of data. So it's very clear in that sense. So you could see it like a data portal with extra all, or a safe marketplace for high quality data. And why do I talk about this? And it doesn't really exist. Well, this is where we are heading. So once the different Citiverses are going to appear, they will need to be to pick data from a data space. So think about a situation where you have this data space. I think it's healthy. I will just briefly talk about these acts related to data sharing and interoperability. One is a Data Act that regulates who controls data, and it actually requires certain amounts of data to be shared. The same High Value Dataset Implementation Act is pointing out data sets that public sector must share. They could share it without using a data space, and this is how it's done today, but in the future, it'll be through a data space. Data Governance Act sets mechanisms for how public sector should share data. And then in the Interoperable Europe Act, it requires interoperability of services in public sector. So there will be requirement of interoperability assessments, and it's actually something that municipalities should start to try to understand now. What does it mean? And we're trying to understand it here at RISE, and it's not completely clear yet what an interoperability assessment means, but it's something that needs to be done once it becomes more clear what it is. I've just added AI Act as well, and it defines which AI applications that are safe and which are not safe. And it's because everything concerning data will meet some kind of AI sooner or later, maybe already in the phase where data is collected, or it could be, it would certainly happen when the services are being made. So AI everywhere. So we need to follow AI Act as well. There are currently 14 main domains for EU data spaces, and these are the ones that you can see here. And an interesting thing is that the European Data Space for Smart Communities, which is one of the data spaces that are very relevant for our project, is it's a subgroup within Green Deal. So that's interesting that they have placed it there. But just so you know, it's not an own domain, but it's a subdomain to Green Deal. And this is like EU's vision for how everything should be glued together. It's a little bit simplistic here, but it's based on Digital Decade and also European Green Deal. And as you saw again here, we are part of the Green Deal. Green Deal is the policy program for the Green Deal, and these activities within the Digital Europe program that funds this project as well started with data sharing and a lot of IoT, and there have been digital twin activities, and there will be more of these. Data spaces is hot at the moment. There are various data space projects going on, and again you can see data space for this marketplace for interoperable data. And then you have AI everywhere coming from different angles. And the idea is that everything should be combined in the Citiverse edict, and which is something that will appear sooner or later. The Citiverse edict exists already. Sweden is not a member yet, at least, and our project is kind of one of the projects, showing a way towards the Citiverse edict. So this is where everything comes together, and with different technologies for interaction, and instead of having all this technology focus, which has been like present all the time in the digital focus, in the Citiverse edict, it's also about making benefits for the citizens and for society as a whole, which is what we're working on in our project. So this is nice. I will come back to this again. You should just show it again in the European interoperability framework. There are different levels of interoperability. What capabilities are required in a municipality or an organization that works with interoperability? Well, they're different. One is the technical requirements, and this is what I mentioned before. These are the easy ones in this whole context. And it's about following an interoperable framework when you design your systems. It's about principles for openness and modularity. And it's about having structured, secure, and high quality data. And then you need to follow standards as well. This is something that it's not easy always to do, but it's not impossible to do in a way. Organizational interoperability, it's much harder. You need to watch data or view data as a strategic resource from the whole organization. Some municipalities say that they do, but I haven't seen anyone doing it consequently. And it requires new mindset and ways of working. And it includes that you can control your data. You need to control your data. You need to own your data. You need to make information classification, which is a kind of a risk and consequence assessment of what can happen with my data if I share it, under which conditions should I share it, will be an output from that. And also you have the governance, who's responsible for what are the benefits, what's in it for me, how do you get people involved and parts of the organization involved in the long term and in the short term. And there are internal business and external business models you need to regard here as well. And apart from that, we have the legal parts. There will be, and the legal parts will come with requirements in some cases. You just need to follow something, and there will be constraints as well. There are things you're not allowed to do, and you need to be aware of what kind of legal space do I work in when I work with exactly this data set. This will be different parts of the organization that will be involved, and they have different competences. And you should do what you do the best. So the figure here, it's not something that everyone should be an expert of. It's good to know that there are different roles and who has the different roles, but it's unreasonable that anyone should be an expert on everything. You should be good at what you do the best, but everyone has a responsibility for working with interoperability. So it's about finding what's my responsibility here, you could say. So what should we do? Well, we should always, this is my last slide, so we should always strive to avoid logging of data. And it's hard, but we should strive to do it. And I think it's healthy to think this minimum interoperability mechanisms, or to think about, try always to separate data from data sharing from data use. And that includes being wise in procurements. And this is not easy for municipalities. Also, a way of thinking is to make your data as open as possible and as restricted as required. So if you can make your data open, make it as open as possible. If there are any constraints, of course, you need to restrict it. But it's a good mindset. And it includes, in order to do that, you need to do this risk and consequence assessment of the data that you share. And I think instead of how can other parts of the organization's data benefit me, think about it the other way. How can my data benefit others? It's another mindset. And then you should use open, well-defined standards. You may not start with the standards, but as soon as you want to share data with others, you should really think about the standards. Try to pick data as close to the source as possible, not pick aggregated data or data that has been copied too many times, but try to pick it as close to the source as possible if it's possible. And also when designing systems, imagine a situation where there is a marketplace for data. It may not be a data space, but something data space-like. But try to imagine this situation and also imagine that there's a marketplace for applications like an app store. I think these are good mindsets when you think about interoperability. So that was my last slide, and it was almost exactly 30 minutes.
Perfect, Claus. Perfect timing and perfect content. So thank you very much for that. Maybe you can stop sharing and we will go for some questions.
Yes.
Yes, perfect. So now both, all three of us are in the screen. Yes, good. So thank you again very much, Claus. I think that was a good presentation, especially coming from the EU standpoint. I think that's important that we have that with us when contributing to every one of us contributing to the project, and also the broader outside, so we really know what we're talking about. And this is actually, I think it's I would say, one of the top words used in the EU landscape right now. Monica, you have a question for Claus. Maybe you can start off.
Yes. First, Claus, thank you so much for your presentation. It's very funny when you say that the technical interoperability is the easiest one, and I know how not far we have come with that one, even if we have come a lot further than like for 10 years ago. So I was thinking maybe it's like just working with people, we cannot communicate and we misunderstand each other and we don't have the common language. So maybe the data is just like us, and we try to like squeeze the data into something that we cannot handle ourselves. So I think this is a very interesting topic. So, but my question was a bit related to our project, our European Citiverse Uniting for Inclusiveness project, where we're using accessibility data and inclusiveness, and sometimes very maybe sensitive data that need to be very secure. And are there any discussion around this type of data within the MIMS or on other fields that you have heard of?
So I'm not exactly sure. I'll try to answer. Then you'll see if I answered it correctly from your question. But so for all data sets, you need to appoint someone who's responsible for that data set. And that person or function has a responsibility to make an information classification. And that includes like this risk and consequence assessment and what laws apply here. And that could be GDPR, which it always is if it's personal data, but there could be other laws as well. And once you understand that, then you understand, how can I share my data? How do I need to protect my data when I share it with others? So it's like a basic step that you really need to take. And once you have taken this, you understand much better on which conditions can I let other access my data. What did I answer your question there?
Yes. Because I think when we are starting working with our use cases, we need to have data and we gather data. And if we want to, and if you want to scale up and share this with Europe, we need to understand how we should handle our data sets. And maybe there are already someone responsible for this kind of data sets. Or is it something that we could really contribute with into the European Union, that we understand that maybe this kind of data is essential for starting to have the discussion about universal design or accessibility within the whole of Europe? Then maybe that could be something for for us to like raise the flag or just highlight the question. So
yeah. No, I think maybe I'm just thinking now what we could do is to like pick some of these sensitive data sets and make like like this do what you need to do if it had been a real life situation. So to understand how is it done, what is it I need to do? It's not that it's difficult. It's just something that you need to go through, and then we could publish the results of that. What kind of classification do we end up with? That is something that we can share to everyone, so it'll be easier for the next one to do this classification.
That could really be something that could be our contribution to EU. So I was also thinking about. I know that a lot of municipalities want to do things on their own, and maybe they're starting to realize that there is a value of being able to share data and communicate. But I was thinking about smaller actors that maybe companies or municipalities that don't really have the knowledge and don't have the resources maybe to change a lot within their system, because they often have information that go way back, and to try to have all this the information that they already have, to have that translated into some kind of standardized format to be able to do this interoperability. How are the discussions around the data that is already there?
Yeah, I think if you look at it from a municipal point of view, it's very rare that you actually share data with other parts of the municipality. And it's even more rare that you share it with external players. At least when you talk about IoT data, you can, if it's static data, it's easier to share. But for IoT data, there are very few examples of that. And I think, and it's like a chicken and hen situation. If you don't publish your data, there won't be demand for data. So you need to work with the demand side and supply side at the same time. But as long as you don't have this balance, you could say, then the interest of working with the standards is very low, because why should you spend time on working with the standards when there's no one using your data except from yourself? So it's you need to come over this chicken and hen problem. And that makes it even more difficult for a small player, for example. There needs to be a demand before they can, before they will. There's an idea of investing time in doing it.
Yeah. So do you think that would be a need for like legal requirements in different kind of ways to be able to present data in a certain
Yes.
This initiative where you need to share data within this is it Inspire initiative, where you need to change data for like natural hazards and so on, so we can share within Europe.
Yeah, but that's a fresh example, and it's from the Data Act.
Okay.
That requires I think it's from September this year, if you have IoT data in your public space, and in the public space, it's everyone are data users, you could say, then you should share this data. And this is, and it won't happen in September, because these technical mechanisms, they are not there yet, and it's still unclear what it actually means that you should share it and how you should share it. But I guess it would take like maybe in 1.5 years or something from now, then the municipalities, they will need to share that data. So there will come these requirements from especially from European legislation.
Yeah.
So that's what I talked about. There will be requirements and there will be constraints, and you need to follow them both. And I absolutely think that you need to have these requirements, and that's to build up this a demand for data, because it's not there yet because there's no supply of data. So
Exactly, yeah.
Should we take the question
Yeah.
we have online then? So Klaus, when we get to the point when we have a sharp case,
yes,
you help us, Klaus, to make sure we comply with the standards.
yes. It depends on. I'm not a standards expert, but
We know some
But I
standards.
can point. I know like the principles of where do you need to follow standards. But also I think in this sharp case we should make this information classification to just be sure that we follow the law and there's someone that is information owner of the data and that is like responsible really if something goes wrong maybe. Because we need to have like secure systems, because if we don't have secure systems, we won't have trust. And if we don't have trust, then people will not use it. So,
Something you want to add to this?
Yeah, I have like 1,000 questions, so we could
Take
go
one-
on here
pick one
forever.
of the
But
1,000.
no, but I think this is very interesting, and Anna and I have been talking about to follow the rules. Like you said, there were lots of acts, and we have everything around living in EU and the new
Values.
Bauhaus and all the values of
Green
EU
Deal.
and the Green Deal and everything, and the Data Act and the AI Act and like in our project we have said that we need to be compliant to like all these things, and it's nothing that Anna and I know like by heart, all these all those acts. So we were trying to see if there is a way that we could build like a compliance library where maybe we can have an AI or something that can help us to see if we are compliant, or if there are any like risks in our material that doesn't fit into all these acts. So I just wanted to ask you if you have been working with anything regarding some kind of AI compliance library so we can use.
okay, so I've been discussing AI with my colleagues earlier this morning.
Yeah.
And also discussing compliance of AI acts.
Okay.
And it's still everything that's coming out of EU. There's too much today, and I think EU realized that as well. So they want to like loosen up, so it's not that difficult. That you don't have to follow everything that's on the table today, and you need to be, to be a little bit cool about it, you could say. But there's something that needs to be followed, and when it comes to, and that is, for example, GDPR. And it's also AI Act.
Yeah.
And there are some, there are procedures for how to follow AI Act, and I have colleagues with the RISE that are working in another digital project with this, and so we could connect the two projects here. I think the Commission would be happy for that as well. So.
Yeah, maybe they could use us as a use case that they can have a project with, because we know what we need to be compliant with. So so that could be interesting if they want to use us as a use case, and because I think if you go into this kind of project, it's in those acts and regulations there are many very, very good things, and you really want to align with the things that you need to be in line with. So but it's difficult, as you say, that it's a lot of things that you need to think about.
I had actually one question that I wrote, that it's can we keep our AI trustworthy when linking to different systems? It comes back a bit to AI, but the AI that we develop, how to keep it trustworthy in different systems. That's a 10 million questions maybe I
It's and I don't think there's a good answer to that.
But
So
maybe the compliance library can be a start to
yeah, but it's the whole thing of what happens if you use AI in one context to another context. What will you have to redo everything
Yeah.
again? And I don't think anyone exactly knows how to do it.
Yeah.
That's a sweet part. Okay, so we have an answer to your question here regarding making the earlier question we got online, Klaus. When regarding if you can help us comply, help us comply with the standards, and the answer was, sounds good, thanks, much better to refer to an expert rather than to shoot hundreds of hours trying to interpret all the acts and the rules. And I think that was the answer to our compliance library. At least we can start there and start this discussion. And we will also have a meeting regarding mapping different standards that we are using and data. So and that's coming up now in the next month. So I think that's also we're taking steps forward, at least in this area.
Oh yes.
Any final things from you, Monica, perhaps?
Yes, I was a little bit interested in the one that wasn't technical interoperability, but the legal one.
Yeah.
Because if you are many different countries with their different rights and laws and everything, so it's one thing to have the one that you showed with the USB-C standardization, but if there are laws in one country and other laws in another country, and they go if they don't match, so is there like a standardization for this kind of?
Nah, but I think it's more like if it's EU regulation, then it's higher than Swedish law, for example, or any other national law. And what they say at the Commission is that for all these acts coming out, that they are willing to adjust them if they are not fulfilling their purpose. So that's one thing. So they may be adjusted, and this is something new, I've understood. And the other thing is that there will be a requirement for national legislation as well to comply with the European legislation. And exactly how that's going to happen, I don't know. But this is and this is not a new situation, that in many areas the national laws, they have to be updated to follow the European laws, because especially within, like, we live in a more and more digital world, but most of our laws were written in an analog time. Some of them, they just don't fit at all. So you need to update them and make them timely, you could say. Did it answer your question?
Yes.
And it's not something that's special for this area. It's like common for how they work with these laws on different levels. So.
Yeah, that was a good point. So with that, thank you very much, Klaus.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, I like this born to be interoperable. So,
yeah.
That's something Klaus.
There was something Klaus said, that born to be interoperable. Maybe that could be our leading star.
Yeah.
So
I think this is an important topic, and I thanks everyone who joined here for today, and thank you, Klaus. And with that, we say see you soon, and bye bye.
Bye bye. See you.
See you.